SEAC. I'm the chair of this committee, and Delmar, I'm also the representatives for military parents and their children. Let's begin. Our vice chair, Jordan, was not available to come in person, so Jessica Nicholas is kindly sitting in to assist me with the meeting. And we'll begin with the land acknowledgement, so please rise.
We acknowledge we live on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Anishinaabe, the Musqueam, Confederacy, and the Wendat. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples.
Thank you very much. Let's do our housekeeping activities first. We have a closed agenda. Could someone move the approval of the agenda? Isabella, and the seconder, Laura. Any comments, or can we move to a vote? Move to a vote. All in favor of approving the agenda?
To clear the end.
I approve it. I'm driving, so I approve the agenda and the other one until I get home.
Okay.
Let's wait on it.
Excellent, Lawyer. Yes, that's fine. Anyone have a conflict of interest they need to declare in relation to anything on the agenda? If no, and if so, please let us know. Not hearing anything. We have minutes for 2 months to approve, March and April. I'm going to defer March because there was something I wanted to check on it, and I apologize simply because I didn't. I'm not ready to look to it. I don't want to hold up the meeting. So we can defer that to June, and let's just deal with the April agenda, or April minutes. And I'm certainly prepared to recommend we adopt it. I am concerned that it doesn't tell us what the delegates on how school boards are going to be governed, in this province. I voiced it publicly serious concerns about it. In fact, it's here. I think for our purposes, however, at the SEAC level, the very important thing for us will be having input in two things. One is how the school board changes in light of it, and how they particularly change, or how it may impact delivery of education, disabilities, and special education needs. And second, there's a whole lot of rulemaking that can come from the province. And previously, it would be things that would be decided on here, the school board. It would have been within our mandate to give advice to the board. And at least we're in a situation where we are under supervision. In other words, when we give advice, we're giving it in effect to the provincial government. Ultimately, obviously, we're working with staff. So there's going to be room for us to want to know how this is playing out, and potentially to offer our advice and input into the changes that may be forthcoming, including the range of regulations and rules and directions. For example, if the Toronto District School Board decides to build an addition to a school, there could be minister directions and directives regarding that undertaking. And that could well impact on what was done or not done to address accessibility needs of students and everybody else with disabilities. That's the kind of thing we may want to have a say in. Nothing more to say about that now. There's going to be a lot coming. And obviously, we'll want to work with staff on this because they are going to have to cope with ground that is dramatically changing and it's not clear in what ways. There is a motion which I placed before you for our discussion and circulated in advance. It relates to the outcome or the action on our last month's meeting, our public forum, and I'm deferring that to when we get to that on the agenda. The other two things I want to just mention is, as my report indicates, I'm leaving for staff two open questions of which I would like to ask that the leadership report or somehow we get a report on monthly. I'm not going to say it every month. I think we could just take it as a given. One is on what is happening or what changes are going on with respect to the actions of the supervisor beyond what's posted online. We used to have trustees tell us what was going on at the trustee level, so this would be helpful. And second, to get an update as we did 2 months ago on what's happening on the activities of the student and family support office, because that, insofar as that relates to students with disabilities and special education needs. Last thing I want to mention, and it's just an FYI, I described it in my report, about an agenda item that I'll be placing on the agenda for our June meeting. Because you may wish to speak to your associations about any experience they have on this topic. I'm not proposing we discuss it now. I'd ask staff if they could give us some sort of briefing or information about it next month. And it's fair for them to say they need the time to prepare, so we're doing it. But in a nutshell, there are times when this school board, and what I gather potentially other school boards, may issue a letter to a family, which at the board here I think is called the letter of expectation, which boils down to a direction on who they can speak to the board and how often. I gather it is meant to be, it's not limited to just families, it could be others, and it is driven by a belief on the part of the board that an individual is either being inappropriate in the frequency or the tone or content of their contacts with the board. I don't propose to go, we're certainly not going to discuss any individual cases. It's not what we do here. But the issuance of such a letter could have real impact on the parents' capacity to effectively advocate for their child's disability or special education needs. And therefore, I'd ask if we could be briefed on what the board's policy or practice is on when what kind of circumstances or what criteria are used to decide that such a letter will be written, on who decides that such a letter will be written, on what the time frame is for such a letter, and applies to other people's on our issue. But if a parent is told or receives one of these letters and they believe that their conduct is warranted, what, if any, recourse they have within the board to try to contest or try to get it rescinded or lifted. So those are questions which, and I'm looking at it through the lens not of any particular case, but I am raising it in light of a concern that were such a letter issued in circumstances where a parent isn't meeting the criteria that the board says applies, or is being impaired in their ability to effectively advocate for their child's disability or special education needs, there could be cause for concern. And so the first step in this process is just say, the board, when and why and how you do this. And what can a parent do if they don't think it's, they deserve it? Like what's built into the regime? And so that's what we'll discuss in June. But I want to give you a heads up in case any of your associations or any of you have any knowledge about this. Like when we first brought up exclusions, refusals to admit, our discussion was enriched by experiences people had obviously expressed without any names or identifying specifics, which is what they knew about all this going on. With that, I'd like to move to the first substantive agenda item, and that is the budget. As you all know, under the regulations that create us, the board has a duty to consult the Special Education Advisory Committee on its special education budget. Our last discussion of this was in January with Craig Snyder, who's the senior budget official. He is now retired. We are so used to him, but we understand someone is stepping into his shoes. And Stephanie Harris, is here to speak to us. Stephanie, we welcome you. We had 10 years of resigned by 11 years at SEAC. Became used to him coming every year with a ton of information and answering a ton of questions. We look forward to having the same kind of interaction with you. The last time we spoke with him, we were not speaking about the upcoming year's budget. We were really talking about what happened, what was going on under the current year's budget. At that time, I had asked him what the plans were going to be this spring for developing the budget, given that the trustees are no longer involved in the process. There used to be a budget committee, it went public, there were trustee meetings, there were trustee town halls, there was a whole lot of public space for this to be discussed. And the answer was that the staff would be essentially going through their same process internally of developing what they, I guess, need. They had to wait for getting the province's figures, so they could build on that. But as for how the board would then engage in its consultative or broader community process, he did not then know. So we are now in May, by which time we would have heard a lot more than we have this year. Of course, our public forum preempted our discussing this in April. So I wanted to ask for staff to present whatever they can tell us, and then open it up to questions. So welcome aboard, and we're all leaders.
Thank you, David. So I'd like to introduce to SEAC Stephanie Harris, who is taking over for Craig Snyder. So welcome, Stephanie.
So thank you, everyone. I'm pleased to be here tonight to meet the committee and my guests to live up to the 10 years experience of Craig Snyder. And again, that will also cover where we are with respect to 25-26 budget, just because the last time Craig presented revised estimates budget had been completed, so this reflects our final budget for 25-26, which is obviously the starting point for our 26-27 budgets. And lastly, there is, I just want to say that I'm a parent of grade 11 students, so I also am very passionate about education and parents moving forward. So next slide. So we have internally developed a high-level budget plan using the best assumptions we have about what funding levels we need for next year, as well as what we expect the expenses to be. And that takes into account things like our expected inflation rates and what we expect the expenses to change. Obviously, all of this is high-level planning and it's very contingent on the ministry funding announcement, which we haven't yet received, but we are expecting to receive shortly. So once we receive that, it will help us to finalize the plans for next year's budget. Because we are in this phase, at this moment in time, the final budget will ultimately be approved by the supervisor of the board. And the timeline we're working towards for all of the budget planning is that we have to have budget sign-offs to make it to the next year by June 30th. So next slide. One of the key things that's impacting our budget for next year is enrollment. Our enrollment at the TDSB continues to decrease. This year in 25-26, we actually had about 3,000 student reduction from what we were expecting. And as we look forward at our projections for next year for 26-27, we're expecting around a further 5,000 decrease in the number of students that are going to be here at the TDSB. And if we look beyond 26-27, we're seeing that expected movement continue to grow. Next slide. So there's a couple of main reasons for this decrease. The first reason is obviously decreased immigration into Canada. The federal government has made changes to the overall immigration targets within Canada. So broadly, that's affecting all of Canada. It's a particular impact on the GTA because of the high number of newcomers who do come to the GTA or come to Canada. So that's one impact. The second impact is around overall affordability. And so we're seeing that there is definitely a trend of families, particularly younger families, moving outside of Toronto, and not only Toronto, but outside of the GTA, in search of lower housing prices and greater affordability. And both of these trends are things that we expect will impact us again, not only for 26-27, but in future budget years. Next slide. So enrollment is a very significant impact to our overall budget planning because while the board is funded in a variety of different ways from the ministry, the primary driver of our revenue that we receive annually is the number of students that we provide education to. So because we're expecting lower enrollment next year, we do expect that will decrease the overall grants we receive from the ministry. Because we're expecting lower immigration to impact the board next year, that will also translate into a reduction in English second language funding, and both of those decreases, the overall funding envelope as well as ESL will result in a decrease because the majority of our spending results. Next slide. So very specifically with respect to special education, we do expect that there will be an overall decrease in 26-27 to our special education envelope. The primary reason for the decrease is the overall decrease in student enrollment because that is the primary driver of the special education funding envelope. As I mentioned before, not only special education, but across the board in areas where our funding is based on projected as it is annually. So all of the staffing that we allocate to schools will be adjusted based on the projected enrollment, which as I mentioned, will take into account the lower projected enrollment. Despite the fact that the special education envelope is expected to decrease due to enrollment, we are very happy to maintain the school-based staffing levels at the levels they are in 2026. So this is very important despite the loss of students and the decreases that we're expecting. We're very happy that the special education school-based staffing will not be decreasing. Next slide. So this is just an overall summary of the final budget for 25-26 after revised estimates and final enrollments were projected. This spending level is just a fine version of the information that we shared previously, and overall we're spending $553 million on special directly this year. And finally, when we take the self-contained allocation from regular day school off the spending numbers that were shown on the previous slide, we have a total overall spending of $474 million on special ed. When we compare that to the revenue that we're given in our special education envelope, which is $428 million, we are overspending what we have received from the ministry by $45.7 million. So again, this is the 25-26 information. As soon as we finish the 26-27 budget, then we'll be able to refresh and provide updated budget numbers. So that is at a high level the information that I wanted to share with the committee tonight. I'm very happy to answer questions and take any consultation that the committee would
Well, people are thinking the questions, we've got a couple of things very much. Can you tell us whether there is an actual projection, and if so, what's based on, how many students with disabilities or special education needs there could be next year? In other words, is there any basis in like evidence basis for saying if we're down 5,000 students next year, it's going to be pro rata a reduction in special education students as opposed to, let's say, a smaller than pro rata reduction? So my first question, or you're just kind of just assuming it's the same. Second, just so I'm clear, last year our associate director, who was first on facilities, wasn't they?
Yes.
Okay, great. Told us that there would not be any reduction in special education staff, even if there's a budget reduction. And that's essentially what I hear you saying. I want to make sure I got it right. I got a problem. And then the final question I've got is, in the final numbers at the end of the year, we're still using the budget for the last trustees approved, I gather. Is there a deficit at the end of the year? Not special ed, but net deficit overall fiscal budget for this year.
And so I will take the first two questions and then second the last would be enrollment question. So the increase in enrollment that is going to be experienced board-wide. We don't have numbers for students with special education needs specifically for next year. However, when we look at our data year over year from previous years, we do see a decrease in enrollment of students with special education needs, but it's in a very small amount, so not proportional to what we're seeing decrease in growth.
That's great. Thank you.
With regards to your second question, as Nathan said, our school-based staffing allocation will remain consistent for the 2026-27 school year. 25-26, which is this current school year, across the district. As needs change, in individual schools, the individual school staffing allocation may change, but across the district, the school staffing levels remain the same.
So the other one is, essentially, did we stay out of the budget? We were told in January that the board is still operating as of January on the budget that the trustees had approved last spring. And I want to know if that is continuing to be in here. The second thing is, it is so, if not really cuts. The other question is, did the year end up with a deficit in the overall budget?
So, thank you. So, the budget that was approved by the trustees in June 25-26 is the budget substantially that we're working with right now. There were some adjustments that were made to the budget in this revised estimate process, which is an annual process due every December, primarily as a result of adjusting enrollment and other enrollment changes. So that process means that the budget we're working with right now is substantially the budget that was approved by the trustees last year. With respect to the second part of the question, do you want to just?
Yeah, well, sure. Did we end up with a deficit? Because last fall or last spring, when the budget was approved, there was going to be a deficit. It's obviously the subject of, let's just say, public or political debate. And at least one newspaper or news website reported in January that TDSB ended up not having a deficit because revenues were greater than projected. So I didn't know how the year turned out. The fiscal.
So the fiscal year, the prior year, 24-25.
No, this fiscal year.
So the fiscal year that we're in right now, yes, we have a projected budget deficit of roughly $25 million.
Right. Thank you. Other speakers? All right. Laura.
Thank you. And so I just want to clarify something. I hear staffing levels. But I'm hearing that is that people want to share their special or any of that stuff being cut. We're not talking about making some staffing levels based on. So teacher count will be the same. EA count will be the same. Is that what we're saying?
So Nora, each year our school-based allocation is an overall number. From that allocation, we determine by needs. We determine secondary teachers, how many we need, elementary teachers, how many we need, support staff, how many we need. They all come from that one number. So they can fluctuate based on needs. What I'm saying is that the overall number in terms of school-based allocation remains the same as last year.
From the money pocket.
From the number bucket. Yeah, so the number of staff, the students with disabilities and special education needs in schools remain the same. It could be more teachers or more support staff in any given year, depending on the year.
Thank you for clarification. So I like that. So like that is people will actually change side. Okay. Thank you for that. And then the other question is just a reminder that special education staff, from my understanding of the question that asked for years, don't just support special education students. So when Dave is asking for how many special education students they have, it's not just important to know that they are our special education students that are impacted by the numbers. It's also important to know there are students who receive service that don't have IEPs, which is my understanding is as special needs, of course. They have most students who are being short-term interventions. So they don't have IEPs, we're not doing special ed. And special staff are supporting these non-special education students. We don't know how many students that is.
not have a number, so any student in the TDSB requiring sports will receive supports, and we talked about this at every meeting, every year around this time. But for a variety of reasons, families will choose not to have an IEP for their children, but we're still obligated to provide supports for that student.
Yeah, and I get concerned about the documentation and the perception of the public of who's being served. So when a survey goes out and says, we think special education is a priority, that's a population of people. It's actually, those monies are supporting more than just that population of people. So I guess I still have concern, and I appreciate that part almost talks to me in staffing levels. So this isn't about exactly, it's more about just being clear with the public about, because I feel like that's a question, really talking to specific students, left the public with the impression they have the right to comment. And it didn't provide the full range of student population to be supported by staff.
So we also have the individual learning plan, which is a document that, so it is documented on that. That happens typically prior to a student being placed on an IEP. And in addition to that, we do have a practice that if the student needs support or for more than a term, then we would be looking at do they require an IEP. So it is documented either on the ILP, which is the individual learning plan, or on the IEP, which is an individual education.
Any questions? Isabel?
Okay. Thank you for your presentation, and I just wanted to follow up on the question that David brought up about the enrollment and whether there is a separation between, or do we know the numbers of students who have special education needs? Because I say this also that within special education, the level of need and the level of money that needs to be put forward to accommodate those students, it will vary from gifted all the way to students who have multiple exceptionalities and are medically fragile. I'm just wondering whether there is potentially a way that some of this could be actually tracked and considered during the time when the budget is being put forward, because putting all these students together, just to me, just doesn't make any sense as enrollment, unless you have additional pockets of money that can support that. That's all I guess I wanted to say, and I'm wondering whether there could be a way of actually accounting for that.
So, David, I'll take this one again. Students with special education needs are counted as students with an individual education plan that's across the province, whether or not they have been formally IPRC. So, students with our 17% approximately, or approximately 40,000 students with special education needs, those are students who are on an IEP who may have been formally identified or not formally identified. But Isabella, you'll recall that I did a staffing, a presentation on staffing, and how staffing is allocated to schools earlier this year, and I did share that it's based on the number of students within that school, as well as the needs of individual students, needs of groups of students, combination of students, intensive support programs. So we do take the unique needs of each school into consideration when we allocate staff to each school.
I'm sorry, I meant the overall budget.
Yeah, so if I may, hi, Isabella, and good evening, staff and Chair Bosky. David, I'm going to suggest, and I think I've done this before, but I need to action it with your support. I think to Isabella's question, it would be really powerful, I think, for SEAC to understand the special education grant and its components, so that we can see the data actually, there's a component of the grant called the differentiated special education needs amount, that takes in different data factors, Isabella, that kind of predicts, based on a multitude of factors, the level of need for students, and there's differentiated funding levels for that, and there are different components of the grant. So I think it would be a really good foundation for us understanding how we're funded. So with your support, David, we can get on the future agenda. Thanks.
All right, so we could, we're going to, so we're going to be starting on now, but I'm going to invite you back for June, because obviously you don't know what we've got to work with yet for the province, which is kind of involved. Just volunteer. But that's going to be the ones where we can have an impact and where we see what you're thinking that we have. But as part of that, getting a staff briefing of what these just suggested may be very helpful. Our next speaker is, because I'm watching this document, our speaker, our questioner is our CI members. Sort of trying to stay within 2 minutes, that would be great. Richard, yeah.
Thanks, David. I'll do it in 1 minute, and mine is just a statement, not a question. Thank you for maintaining special education staffing levels, first of all. But also, I need to be absolutely clear, this is not a favor, and it should never be framed as overspending the envelope on special education. I really beg you to please, and of course, please stop using that term that has been recurring every single year. We are in a very unfortunate politicized environment, therefore spending matters even more. But we are very clear. Special education grant envelope does not define the board's legal obligation. The obligation exists regardless of whether the provisional funding is sufficient. If the envelope falls short, the legal duty to accommodate does not disappear with it. Special education is not optional, it is not discretionary, it is a legal right protected under the Education Act, the Ontario Human Rights Code, and consolidated by the Supreme Court of Canada and Moore v. British Columbia, which ruled, and I quote, that adequate special education is not a dispensable luxury, but the means by which disabled students access education itself. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you, Leo.
Thank you again for the information and for protecting the funding of the education staff. So one of the things I heard was, so staff will stay the same when and so forth, but we anticipate a reduction in funding. So on that note, do you anticipate approximately where that funding reduction may see? And I'm specifically wondering about self-contained versus students in the classroom. Nora mentioned earlier that special education supports all students. And you mentioned that through in some other different ways. So I'm just trying to understand, do you have a sense of where, if you're cutting the funding but keeping the staff, there's got to be a shift. I'm just wondering if you have any ideas of when you have any to share that matter yet. Maybe you don't yet.
So thank you very much for the question. So overall, we are still waiting the announcement from the ministry on the grants that we have. And once we receive the final information, then we'll look in the context of the entire budget to see, how we can balance the various spending. So to answer your question, we're looking holistically across all the areas of spending. Obviously, if we have to make reductions, then we'll look at areas where we see impact on students and students carefully considered. So we'll have more information as we see grants.
All right, very good. And last is just.
Thank you. So we heard this school-based staff, we just make sure we get the same. But school-based staff are supported by central staff. Our central staff, we support special education. School-based staff, we're doing the same thing.
So thank you through the chair. We are looking at our central
because our enrollment has been decreasing over multiple years, and we have not made any reductions in central staff, and plenty of our central staff really across the system, we will be looking for reductions this year. And so special education central staff, again, we try to support students, but it is potential that they're going to
Okay, before we wrap up, sorry, Latoya, you wanted to ask something, can you do it really briefly?
I can, sorry, thanks so much. Yeah, I think, just following up on, I guess that, what the invitation for, coming back to talk about that special education funding for people, I think, it'll be nice when we come back with that, just try to break it down, the understanding, of how that special education fund for people, allocation goes, for example, that 1.3 billion that's out there for the Ontario website, and other funding that comes in, and how the board uses it to be able to support students who have that identified need, and the sort of environment where that support is doesn't feel like a label, and how it is used to create where that funding comes from to support those where it is creating that opportunity for students who are still navigating that acceptance, and if families that are also navigating the acceptance of funding is used to support that, just to help to I guess appease any words that is used for students that don't need it.
Right, thank you. Certainly, actually, I'm going to ask if we can just hold more questions to either email them in, or I'm going to be asking Stephanie to come back next month, because that's when the hard decisions are being made. What I want to do, though, is ask, and or if one even, refer it over to Stephanie. And Stephanie, one thing I want to just ask in conclusion, and it's just something for you to take back for our discussion in June, is this. I've said at this table any number of times that the board's duty is to consult us on the special education budget, but over the years that rarely actually happens. What we end up getting is, here's what it is, any questions? And you concluded your presentation by saying we welcome questions or consultation. And I appreciate this is a new role for you, but what we need to know are what questions can we answer? Like we can't read all these numbers, decode them, and then come back and say, hey, having decoded them, we spot a problem. Sometimes we do catch issues, and when we do, we raise them. This is a committee that is not shy, and is very thoughtful and reflective. But we need consulting us on the budget would, in my mind, include coming to us with substantive questions that can help guide our decisions. There's one example for what you just said that I can tell you, but if asked, we would lost the same. You mentioned the possibility of central staff reductions. I'm not talking about what goes on in other parts other than special ed. But the special ed staff here don't teach kids, but they try to broker solutions for kids when parents are raising problems that they can't get solved. We lost the trustees for we don't know how long. And what we're left with is a student and family support office without expertise in this area, and which purposely CTV has two staff to respond to a million students. All brilliant questions, but good. So there is a direct impact on students with disabilities and special education needs, just as the reduction in vice principals has a direct impact. A kid flees the school ground, autism runs, somebody has to organize the work to find them. It's a safety issue. The vice principal could be that person, but if they're split between school and school, they may not be there at all. So it's important. I mean, I'm giving you this feedback here just based on something that one of my colleagues asked and the answer did. But it would help when you come back and send us some questions on which we can do input. That would be wonderful. And also during the year, not just when the budget's being finalized, but during the year, we're happy to be involved in that kind of exchange over the year. Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it and welcome again.
Thank you, and I really appreciate your comments and the request for specific questions that you can answer to provide input, and I'm very happy to come back to the meeting. So again, thank you.
Fantastic. Report. All right, we're now going to go to the next agenda item, and it's a significant agenda item as well, and that's the special education plan. Over the year, staff have provided avenues for input, including a special education committee here, which we appreciate. And we were told in March that in May we would be advised of what the changes would be to the special education plan. These will now not go to the trustees, these will go to the supervisor, which is going to sign off on. And we, since the supervisor has this year not individually legally on your behalf, I'm respecting that whatever we're told staff's going to do is going to become the plan. There's the avenue like we had last June to go to trustees and say, hey, we've got an issue about Muslim. So staff have asked for time to present a circulated document listing the changes. I've got a couple of thoughts. If you do share thoughts, I've been told it's something that would be taken into account next year. But nevertheless, a year ago, when staff came to us at the meeting, that was when we first found out about one change that we were not consulted on, but we had an opportunity, we were given time to consult. And that was increasing the number to the intensive support program class sizes. And I'm asking staff to clarify, as we are told about what changes there are in the special education plan, what, if any, are changes that we are hearing about now for the first time? If any. So, Danny, over to you.
Thanks very much, and before we start the presentation there, Leanne, if you can give them Sharon or Cole's access case, you should get that up. I wanted to first of all extend gratitude to the members of the special education plan working group who gave significant feedback for us to take under advisement, and a lot of that has been put into the amendments, as you will see. So I'll start off, waiting for Deb. Perfect, thank you. So I'll start off by sharing that a bit of context. So under the Education Act, the purpose of education is to provide students with the opportunity to realize their potential and develop into highly skilled, knowledgeable, caring citizens who contribute to their society. Ontario Regulation 306, Special Education Programs and Services, establishes that every board shall maintain the special education plan in respect of the board and ensure that the special education plan is amended from time to time to meet the current needs of the exceptional pupils of that board. Next slide, please. OREG 306 requires that the special education plan of the board be reviewed annually, and that the review is plan only needs to be amended from time to time to meet the current needs of the exceptional pupils of the board. In addition, next slide please. In addition to Regulation 306, which outlines responsibilities for school boards with regards to special education plans, there is also a document entitled Standards for School Board Special Education Plans, which outlines what school boards must include in their special education plan. And so school boards, according to this document, are required to develop a comprehensive special education plan, perform an annual review and update by July 31st, as I said, amend the plan to meet the needs of current students, and formally submit any amendments to the Ministry of Education. Next slide, please. This document clearly outlines the purpose of the school board's special education plan, which is to provide the Ministry of Education and the public with information about special education programs and services that are provided by the school board in accordance with legislation and ministry policy on special education. So I need to share here that the special education plan doesn't have everything about special education. In fact, TPSB special education plan is quite robust. We've heard from this committee time and again a little too robust and too much information to process. But we are required to ensure that it has all of the required elements as outlined in the regulation and the guidelines document. Each school board also must submit a parent guide to special education along with the plan to the ministry, and that is really where parents get more information about special education programs and services offered by the board. Next slide, please, now. So in terms of gathering feedback, we have done this as we have in previous years in a number of ways. And this survey link that exists in the special education plan at the beginning of each section was actually a suggestion by SEAC a number of years ago that we implemented. And we do receive some feedback via that link. Parents, guardians, caregivers, and community members, as well as staff, can also provide input through their school principal, their school council, or directly through SEAC members and association members, as well as staff through schools, departments, and other groups such as community groups, advocacy groups, and parents, guardians, caregivers themselves can provide feedback. So under Regulation 46497, the board shall ensure that its Special Education Advisory Committee, SEAC, is provided with opportunities to participate in the annual review of the second half. And the TSB SEAC had created a special education plan work group that participates in the annual review, that communicates with and to members of SEAC, as well as parents, guardians, and caregivers of children who are receiving special education programs and services when the timelines or the deadline is for providing input into the plan. So I'm going to pass it over now to Assistant Superintendent Dr. Debbie Gonski to review the amendments for next year. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mandy. So the core objectives of the amendments were to streamline sections, which Mandy has spoken to, condense content to ensure the plan is concise and easy to navigate. We reduce redundancy, eliminating repetitive and overlapping information, enhance clarity and transparency, using clear language to define how programs and services are delivered to students with special education needs, and then ensuring regulatory alignment. Ontario Ministry of Education standards for school boards, special education plans, Regulation 306, Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and the Ontario Human Rights Code, relevant policies, procedures, and guidelines. To Nancy's point, I will go through some of the changes. You will have received the amendments document as well, and just bringing forward some of the highlights. So in section B, which is the board's consultation process, we included a statement about the minority report from the Association for Red Children, ABC, of Ontario. Section C, the board's general model for special education, included a statement encouraging parents to attend in in-school team meetings. Currently, they are required to attend a school support team. IST is optional, and we're encouraging parents and schools to attend this level of the meeting through the referral process as well. We also clarified information on confidentiality and parental permission for professional support services, which would include psychology, physical and occupational therapy, speech language pathology. We also updated the graphic for a tiered approach to intervention. In section D, roles and responsibilities, we updated to align to the ministry standards document. In section E, which is about SEAC, Special Education Advisory Committee, we expanded the Special Education Plan Working Group to the full SEAC membership to ensure the broadest possible range of feedback, and that would, of course, like all these be in place for next year. And we updated the SEAC meeting information. In section F, Education and Other Assessments, we updated information on age of consent, refined referrals and results management protocols for occupational therapy and physiotherapy, clarified standards for psychoeducational assessments, record keeping, and consultations, clarified referral process for social work assessments, refined the speech language pathology assessment section to improve clarity, specifically defining AAC for broader understanding and refocusing literacy component on early developmental milestones. In section H, which is the identification, placement, and review committee processes and appeals, we clarified that placement in an ISP may be time limited or longer term, depending on the program model. Updated the IPRC processes, including a chart for clarity. Psychology staff will continue to support central IPRCs, but no longer at the school-based IPRCs. And we also updated documents for English language learners. In section J, special education placements provided by the board, we did update grade 11 and 12 requirements for ASD, gifted, and LD ISPs, explicitly added language stating that placement decisions must be based on educational criteria and professional evidence rather than preference alone. Simplified the description of secondary ISP pathways to a broader statement. Secondary ISPs offer a variety of pathways to meet the needs of students, removing the specific list of post-secondary destinations, university, college, etc. And then section K, individual education plans. We updated language from challenging beliefs to firm commitment to identifying and removing systemic barriers and affirming diverse abilities. Condensed information on modifying secondary course expectations for greater clarity. Section L, specialized health support services in school settings. We updated information to include a requirement for annual submission of referrals to Ontario Health at Home for all nursing supports, requiring parent guardian signatures for both new requests and renewals of existing care, and clarified clinical oversight for intensive occupational therapy, physiotherapy, speech pathology treatment, and the responsibility of the Ministry of Children, Community, and Social Services. Section M, which is about equipment, we synthesized assistive technology and specialized equipment application content into this section and moved staffing information previously in this section to section H, which is identification, placement, and review, and process and appeals, as well as section S, special education staff, respectively. Included information on accessibility reports being available via the Finance, Budget, and Remote Committee agendas rather than link, and then updated information to reflect $47.9 million in specific ministry accessibility funding for priority upgrades in pre-2015 schools, including visual fire alarms, universal washrooms, and elevators. And of course, Mike Cheney spoke about that earlier this year. Changes in section O, transportation, we updated information to reflect transition from physical TTC tickets to TTC Presto cards for eligible students in grades 6 through 12, and obviously up to 21. Updated the age for free TTC travel to 1200. Transportation to align with current municipal transit policies. Section Q, coordination of services with other ministries or agencies. Oh, there's a spelling mistake. Recognize the former ECPP category into two distinct categories: care and treatment programs, CTAP, and education and community partnership programs, ECPP. Section R, staff development, including priority focus on individual education plans. And finally, section S, which I alluded to earlier, we updated to, and it will be, the numbers will be updated in July, but information on staff allocation as required by the standards for school board special education plans. And that's it.
Great. Thank you, and I want to open it up to questions. I've got a few myself, and meanwhile, while I'm doing and Warren for one of them, the first as I pick off the last one. First, I would like to know if there are any changes in this on which we were not previously consulted. Second, you might use the for feedback, but I did want to say that I appreciate the effort to synthesize it, but I would not be able to tell from that summary and from reading that document what a lot of these changes are. And if some of them are cosmetic, like using consistent language or moving something from A to B, and I don't care. But I don't know what a lot of this means at all. So, I would need feedback based on the information. But, from reading it, I have three areas I want to highlight as concerns. One, there is a discussion about building accessibility and how many schools are accessible virtually or not. From this committee's meeting, when we discussed this, and I can tell you from extensive work in the area, whatever standard they're using is not a reliable and appropriate and complete one. So when they say 100 and so odd schools are accessible, it's actually inaccurate. They may be, but they're not using the right criteria. And from the report itself, it's clear they're not. So it's providing information with comments which is, I believe, correct, or at least unreliable. And it's a serious concern if they're assessing accessibility using an inadequate standard, and just the building code and AODA standards or something. AODA has virtually almost none. The second thing is, the report talks about a practice which the board has used for some time now. It may well be this comes from the province, but it talks about the fact that if a child has more than one, I don't like the word exceptionality because I think it's stigmatizing. More than one disability, TSP will decide which is the dominant one. That is, Dr. Johnson refers to charter rights, and human rights code is right and enforces the formulation of the plan or revisions. This flies in the face of that. A child can have two disabilities. They can each be serious and significant in their impact on education. And labeling the child with one but not the other, or deciding that one is dominant when they actually interact with each other and are not sidebar, whether from an education or human rights approach perspective, really wrong. The same way that if you look at someone who's biracial and said, well, we can only identify you as one of your two, but not both. You say that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. It's a perfect. So you've got to decide if you're a woman or you're visually impaired because you can't do both. terms of education, either disability can have a direct accommodation being associated with it. But a combination of the two disabilities may magnify or add other accommodation needs beyond that. So if the, now again, the board may tell us if the province requires that, I don't know. And if they do, then we are probably going to fix it eventually. But from a perspective of students with disabilities, it's really wrong. The final thing is, the report, or the, as it's read, it may just be as a passage, it's something that's already been there, just change the word. But it's talking about IEPs, individual education plans, and it's talking about essentially, and I may be oversimplifying, I apologize if I did, but in effect saying, well, if we can accommodate a need without an IEP, unless the IEP is necessary, we'll do the accommodating, but we won't necessarily do an IEP. I'm not for 1 minute saying that the school board should say this is not the IEP, we won't do it. But the whole idea of an individual education plan is essentially a need to accommodate them with disabilities. And so it shouldn't be approached as this document suggests that you only put it in there if it's necessary, put it in there to deliver it. There ought to be very few things that are, the board couldn't do unless it's in the IEP. That's impoverished. The better approach is what's going to most effectively deliver these accommodations. If there's an accommodation need and an accommodation action is planned for it, but the plan not require anyone to show it's necessary. So those are three concerns I have, which are not cosmetic, which are core and broad impact. It's too late to fix it for this year. We should be fixing it immediately in the fall.
Thanks, David. Before we go to the next speaker, thanks for your comments. I just need to correct something that is
Sure.
that is stated. I want to clarify something. So I am presented to SEAC on multiple exceptionalities at a meeting earlier this year. And I just want to clarify that if a student has multiple exceptionalities, and the IPRC determines that that student is to be having an exceptionality of multiple exceptionality, they would receive the multiple exceptionality. What we do not have are multiple exceptionality classes, because each school board is left to determine their placements and their types of special education classes. However, if a student has more than one exceptionality, of which one is dominant, we list them all on the statement of decision. The IPRC would list them. If they do have one that is dominant, that would be first, the second would be second, and so forth. So I just wanted to clarify that there's a difference between multiple exceptionality, which a student could be identified as having a multiple exceptionality, and that would be on the IPRC statement of decision. And then you can have a student that has more than one exceptionality, and if there's a dominant one, that's listed first, the next one, and so forth. Thanks.
Okay, I guess absolutely fair. My point is the whole concept of dominant is absurd. The child is deaf and autistic. You can't say, well, the deafness is the dominant one. But not autism. You certainly can't say, well, their autism is the dominant one. They are both fundamentally significant for their education-related disability needs. And I don't know who, maybe the ministry is requiring a board to make these determinations, at this point it's the ministry's fault. But I'm just saying that from my perspective, the idea of somehow somebody at the board deciding which is dominant is inappropriate in the extreme. So that's my view, and that's my feedback. All right, and then just Leo, Isabella. Okay. Okay, so Nora, go ahead.
So first of all, I wanted to thank
diligently for all of those sessions, and they're all missed. Jessica was all over it, and I also want to thank Jessica for setting up a very detailed framework that I can see staff very seriously, and the feedback we gave out. And there were lots of recommendations that the committee to language and try to make things clear, and so I appreciate staff did really work very hard to hear all our concerns. So I want to share that with you about that, and thank you for that. I always want to see things about being clear about consent, what people can do with private files being discussed more clearly. Those things were really important. I have a couple of concerns. I just want to put those out there. I found it really sad that the language having fought so hard for AT equals to be included in equity language, to now see the equity language erased. And just the ableism sitting there also doesn't sit right with me, because our kids have all kinds of religious race identities, and you see through a document that language has been removed. And I have significant concerns about people seeing children with one aspect of the child and not understanding that kids are a multitude of things, multitudes. And special education masters, everybody, and I worry about more because language changes thought processes. It's just like the correct people are using the term understanding, it's important because it changes everything. So I'm really discouraged about that. Because I really respect that. I want to have disability included in it. I didn't want to see the other stuff removed. So reference to marginalized students, all that language I learned was back in. And then my second concern was about the staffing sections in section D. And it talks about how, as soon as they look at special ed, the ministry standards say, the ministry standards are removed from that section and refers to the special education teacher. Is this the section that's going to now contain all the central staff and their roles and responsibilities, like, or is that going to be in section J? So that staff that would be vanished in your opinion, I'm worried about where their job descriptions are going to go. So they will not vanish.
Thanks. So Nora, in section S, which is, and that correctly by is that section S, that is staff, the list all of the staff that we have in addition to how many, and that's what Debbie referred to. She said that needs to be updated at the end of June with new numbers, so that is special education staff section S, and they will all be listed. Here are the responsibilities of central staff or special education staff will be listed in the section that we're referencing still. Thank you. So it's captured in two places.
Okay, next is Leo.
Thanks, David. So yeah, the point of language thing we're making on that, there's another one on language which actually Jessica brought to my attention. Thank you, but I'll bring it up here. You removed providing relevant neurodiverse identity confirming recommendations. It also noticed it. But this one is specifically pointing for us because it's a step back in the whole conversation around neurodiversity. Right? So the question there is the board no longer considering neurodiversity as a key policy ideal of working with autism? That's my first question. The second one, and I'm sorry to repeat that later because actually three. Instead of parsing word, it changed from students who require specialized support / basis to students who may require it. I know that it's very subtle, but I really would like clarification whether any operational or eligibility implications are intended, because from our conversations with parents, we have already seen and we're feeling that SFRC are making it harder to come back. Right? So this language feels interesting. The third one, I noticed that there were some changes to the behavior prevention intervention team under autism regional services. And I just would like to understand whether this would be an organizational structure or whether it changes staffing level, referral pathways, response times, mandate all that stuff. And as for just a statement, I noticed the staff allocation numbers have not been included in that section, as you guys mentioned. So therefore, just seeing those in July. So it's true. So first one, neurodiversity. The second one, diversity. The third, the media.
Thanks so much, Leo. And if you could send those, please, in an email, Nora, as well as anyone else. So in terms of neurodiversity, I know we removed it from the, remember, you're just seeing the amendments, so there's still, 200 and something pages that's still about language there. SEAC is actually making it, I would argue, not harder, but clearer for families. So when we had before that, the student require specialized equipment, there are some students who are eligible for a SEAC that do not need specialized equipment. So we in fact are making it more accessible there by saying may require. So we're not requiring them to have a need for specialized equipment. Behavior prevention intervention team was removed because we do not have behavior experts in the TPSB. And those members and staff were reorganized and shifted into other teams and primarily on the autism team. Thanks.
Okay, Jessica, tell us. Jessica goes next. Jessica, you have a question?
So I won't repeat the ground that you heard. I do have a number of questions that was sent. But I'm concerned about a couple of things. I think first of all, the repeat argument Friday afternoon or Monday afternoon. I didn't have the time to see that through everything. I can check that. But also the slides that were just presented to us don't match the document presented with. I only caught 3 of the things, but that's what we're looking through because I didn't see any of the things that they mentioned. So, for example, they mentioned the summary report that is not included in this document. They mentioned changes to working group in section E is not included in this document. They also mentioned changes to grade 11 and 12 requirements for autism Ontario. They should have been included in this document. We were discussing those group, but unfortunately, they aren't included in this document. The text that is proposed is identical to the text that is there. There's also a number of typos in the proposed document, so I really hope that it's not final, that perhaps we receive the wrong copy of something, because the slides don't match the document at the bottom.
Thanks for that. If you can send an email, we'll take a look at those. What's in the slides are in the amended document, Jessica, so I will be taking that out to see what is there.
Okay, and just generally, it would be helpful if you're, I was in the same situation. If we could get, and if it's possible, don't hold it for the whole mail out. If it's going to be a longer thing that requires more time, it would be helpful if we can get it sooner. But also, it's not helpful to just be told that something is clarified or refined. If we're going to understand it, we got to know what it was, what it's become, or something informative.
David, that's what the amendments document is. It's a chart of what was and what it has become.
Okay, well, then it's diverted so I can read it out. It's actually perfect track for me. Anyway, that's who else we got? This is no other than we'll try it. And we're done with this.
Okay, thank you. Well, I know what a big undertaking it is revising this document. I worked on it myself a while back. I have just a recommendation. In the clarification of PKM 81 regarding catheterization and suctioning, you are referring to the student as a child, and I realize that that was the same as before, but many of our students, they're not only children, but they're adults who require catheterization and suctioning and assistance in toileting. Could you possibly change that to just make it more neutral and make it student? Also preserves more dignity this way, rather than making adults with severe needs into children. If that would be okay.
Thank you, Isabel. I think that's a fair request, and we should be using students, so we will be changing that. Thanks.
Okay, let's look at it.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So I'm sorry, I'm just getting back to my schedule. With the special education plan, is something actually my kids have taught me some of their other students, classmates and stuff. The language of special education being focused on achievement for some kids, it makes them feel and increase that resistance and that acceptance about their own diagnosis. It makes them feel as though they are receiving support because they can't or they're incompetent, and so it creates a lot of barrier to make that decision to sort of want to participate in learning. I noticed on the Ministry of Education website, for example, they use individual assessment of strengths and needs. There's other advantages even on the Ministry of Education website that could probably be updated. But maybe the question here is there a consideration as to how we can communicate for IEP, being for students and recognizing that the IEP isn't always for someone who is having challenges meeting expectations. It's also for those who need additional support because they are exceeding expectation consistently, or someone who has a physical condition can meet expectation with support without IEP being documented. Others are going to be able to realize that physical or sometimes other form of limitation. So that's question when I said a way to update that. Another thing is, I don't know if there's a consideration or if it's already been captured or spoken about in regards to ADHD. Notice that how somewhat worse with some of the families that I've spoken to at other school boards who are included, the ADHD sort of captures within that learning disability portion. But PhD is sort of, if you have that diagnosis of ADHD, it's not really captured anywhere else. So if there is any consideration on that, why do we accept that? In the Ministry of Education, don't we have like definitely a category for it? What I've seen on some of the school boards is they do not capture that early experience and the support needs within that LD. I guess there is like an internal way that they do that. So that, and then the third question, that's it, right, is just the removal of the identity and lived experience. Right? For a lot of people who are either new to Canada or based on their own cultural background, they have used another word to describe certain behavior types and stuff like that. Going through this diagnosis and understanding it, working with their children, and seeing a new way of naming some of the ways that they're understanding behavior and responses for their kids. It is a very new thing. And I guess I'm worried that some of these individuals will not get access to feelings of accepting and having a way to be able to be understood. And maybe it is captured somewhere else in the document, and if it is, we can see to how we are making sure that identity and the experience for those who are not native to DSM-5 environment, we have to understand which is how we capture and ensure that they are clear of this.
Okay, thank you so much, Latoya. There's a lot there. There's a lot there. There's something we can respond to now?
Yeah, I can respond to a few. So equity has not been removed from the plan. Equity is still very much there. The language that we've used in the plan actually mirrors the language in our multi-year strategic plan, which equity still very much remains a foundation. We leave in with achievement. And so that will continue to be in our plan. With regards to IEPs, Latoya, we still talk about having alternative pages and all of the different parts of the IEP again. That's not the special education plan is not the place to go into detail about every single component of an IEP, but we do have a parent guide to individual education plans for students. With regards to ADHD, we use again the ministry categories of exceptionality and the ministry language, but just this week we had a parent engagement session on ADHD, supporting teens with ADHD for our families. So we do recognize it, we do support it, and again, all of what you see in the amendments document is not the entire, nearly 300 pages of special education plans. So again, if you do have feedback, kindly forward them via email. We can definitely take a look and respond to that. Thanks.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Just one question. Can you just tell me, like, I heard something about, I'm not sure, right? Does the plan alter anything about age of a student self-referring as social worker?
Sorry, one more time, please.
Does the plan alter the minimum age for a student self-referring to social work services? It doesn't change that.
I don't believe that is something that I would have to check.
It does actually.
It's CYCP and social work have different pages.
Yes, so we have to make a distinction, but I'm not sure which one was changed, David, but it would be in the amendments document that both of them were changed, I believe. But it is listed in the amendments document that we shared.
All right, thank you. Andy, we switched around some unit leadership work. Now, is that good for you?
Sure.
But then we'll spend the rest of the meeting doing the follow-up on the.
Thank you. Leanne, if you can share screen, please. Thank you. So starting off with a shout out to our students and to our blind low vision team within the special education and inclusion department on March 11th. We did host 30 TDSP students with visual impairment who learned to skate and play blind hockey. We also had 20 parents who attended at the same time a parent program which focused on supporting recreational activities for students with visual impairment. Students were very happy that they were able to go on a sensory tour of the arena, experience the dressing room, the players' bench, penalty box, through touch and sound with their movement. Students were taught about the rules of hockey, and each student was provided with a sighted hockey player guide, skates, jersey, safety gear, hockey sticks, and tin pucks with a sound source so players could participate in a game of hockey. So really happy that we were able to continue that program for our students this year as families. It is May, and as with every month, our parent engagement sessions for the month of May have been posted, as well as our parent newsletter for May is now available on the special education website. Again, our recommendation from SEAC was to have an opt-in button on the page, so we do have that. Parents can opt into the newsletter. And we do have a session on supporting teens with ADHD. Last year we had one, and the feedback we received was that they do one that's specifically focused on high school students, so we are responding to these sessions. May 12th from 10 to 11 in the morning, and May 13th from 6:30 to 7:30 in the evening. Next slide, please. We continue to offer principal-wise principal drop-in sessions, and these are monthly drop-in sessions in addition to formal professional learning opportunities that we provide for administrators to build capacity during special education. And sessions are dedicated to both structured learning, a mini professional learning session, if you will, on a topic right now. The hot topic is transitions, and as well as a forum for principals and vice principals to ask questions. So far, we've talked about individual education plans, addressing safety concerns, accessing regional support services, and like you said, supporting transitions. Next slide, please. The TSB hosts annually a conference called the Unleashing Learning Conference. It's a technology-focused conference on Wednesday, April 8th. The Special Education and Inclusion Department presented a number of sessions on accessible teaching, student creation made easy, elevating students who use augmentative and alternative communication or AAC devices, as well as, as well as using AI-powered tools for early learning success. So we will be focusing a lot on artificial intelligence tools and how students can use them to support their learning. Next slide, please. Summer school, it's May, so we are sharing that we will be running again our summer school programs for students with developmental disability, deaf and hard of hearing, and physical disability, intensive support programs. These are half-day programs that will run from July 6th to July 30th. And we are offering a remote program as well for virtual learning. We also will be continuing with our autism skills, summer skills development program for students entering grades 4 to 10 in September, so they're currently grades 3 to 9. And again, these are half-day sessions which will run from July 6th to July 30th. And we will be having mostly online as well as some limited in-person classes, and that's the same model that we used for the fall and spring autism summer skills development programs. Our care and treatment education program and education community partnership program will be offering secondary credit bearing classes for students in partnership with Hunger for Hospital, SEAC Hospital, and some of our agency partners, as well as the students there typically earn credits over the summer months of July. Next slide, please. And we just covered the special education plan, but the slide was meant again to be a thank you to everyone who contributed to providing feedback. This is special education plan. Next slide, please. And we have, of course, in May, a number of awareness events because April was the delegations, the meeting was dedicated to delegations. World Autism Day was celebrated on April 2nd. National Accessibility Week will be held this year from May 31st to June 6th. Speech, Language, and Hearing Month is celebrated in the month of May. Community Living Month is in the month of May, and National Physiotherapy Month is in the month of May. Focus is movement as an learning tool. Again, we shared all of these awareness events with staff via our staff newsletter and with families via our parent newsletter. Next slide, please. And the next two slides will be provided ERC data for March and April, as well as next slide, please, psychological assessment data for March and April. Thank you.
All right, short time for Q&A. If anybody has any speakers, I just wondered if you could be updated on the two questions I asked you versus we last met the Student Family Support Office, and our outstanding question whether it's accurate that there are two full-time staff there. And the other question is what's been happening over the past couple of months on the supervisor. Do you have those on the website? Can you help us provide with us?
Yeah, thanks, David. I don't have any additional updates on the happenings or the specificities of the actions on the part of the supervisor beyond what is listed on the website. We did send that on Friday, asking for an update on that. What I can share is with regards to the question around the number of staff in the Student and Family Support Office. That number fluctuates depending on the volume and types of calls at any given time. Again, staff who support that office work very closely in collaboration with central staff and school-based staff to respond to the concerns in line with the beyond concern protocol. So it's a very close working relationship and collaboration amongst staff in the student accounting support office, central staff, and school-based staff in order to be responding and reporting in a collaborative manner to family concerns that come through the office. So I appreciate that you want a number, David, but it is a fluid number that is based on needs. And I don't have a set number to provide at this time.
What about just the incoming work or load or what that's incoming?
Yeah, so again, you asked for an update in your chair's report that came on Friday, so I don't have an update from the office. I can certainly take that back.
I wouldn't mind it if you could just treat it as a monthly request, because I think other SEACs are getting monthly reports, which helps them, I think would be great for us. So just like going forward basis.
Okay, I'll take that back.
Theo, Bronwyn, and Diane, and then if you could keep us about 90 seconds if possible, that would be great.
Thanks, David. I'll be brief. Nancy, I think I'm going crazy, but because I just took notes based on the materials that were sent, and I didn't see your presentation, so maybe I'm mistaken. But what I took down as a note is that the board established something called accessible learning pathways. So kindergarten to grade 12 accessible pathways, which students with physical disabilities, allowing them to attend school from kindergarten to grade 12 the same cohort years. So maybe you can comment on that. But like my comment on that, I don't remember exactly where it was in the documentation that was there. Parents with no special education needs entering kindergarten today, they already know their kids' pathways from the first day of kindergarten. They know where their child will go to elementary school and high school and what pathways they'll have. It's not the case for many kids with special education needs, right? Or involved in this dense fog when it comes to pathways. They basically find out where they're going middle school and high school 2 days before the fact. So this pathway that you guys are creating is great news. Thanks staff for the work being done on the UK through 12 accessible pathways for students with physical disabilities, right? It's an excellent approach to provide stability, predictability, relationships, all that. And what I really want to say is we want that too. Right? Please don't stop there. The students who often uncertainty are most autistic students are the ones that have the least certainty today. Right? They struggle with transitions, anxiety, and change, and familiar environments and staff, losing trusted relationships that are so hard to deal with. There's research that shows that they experience something called intolerance of uncertainty as a medical term, which means that the uncertainty creates stress and anxiety. They don't know what school they're attending, if supports are going to continue, trusted relationships are going to disappear. It's really unstable, right? So it can take years for one of the students to feel safe, regulated, connected, and then those unfortunate relationships are deeply disrupted. They can regress academically, socially, emotionally, nothing. So for those students with that uncertainty, it becomes a barrier to education, right? So thank you for doing that for physical disabilities. My hope is that you'll consider applying the same philosophy of continuity and pathway planning to autistic students in ISPs. It is an accessibility need. Thank you.
That's great. Let's treat that as feedback, and it would be good to hear in the future what might be doable in our next meetings. Bronwyn. Hey, Bronwyn.
Hi, thank you. This is just a direct question. I had sent an email previously, but I didn't receive any response. And I wanted to follow up why the deaf and hard of hearing annual trip did not happen this year. It was very disheartening for my own children because they did not receive anything through their itinerant teachers. And I myself inquired. We haven't heard any update formally through any communications, and other parents in the deaf and hard of hearing community who have had children within the school board for years are very disheartened. But I also want to highlight that we have many children who are post-COVID who are still in the thick of adjusting, who are lost, who have no intervention services at all, that were the same as other children like myself who were really spoiled before COVID, who got more one-on-one person with deaf and hard of hearing, toddlers and everything in our community. This is the time to continue it. And the fact that it hasn't gone this year is very disheartening. And I'd like to have a formal follow-up on why I wasn't responding with my email, but also why parents were communicating this through email formally and we're just totally not waiting. So please give me a response. It's very upsetting.
I did receive your email Friday afternoon, and I will be responding to your email tomorrow morning or tonight. Our field trips are run by teachers, and so pending staff availability for planning and organizing field trips, a number of things will change. So I will be replying to your email as I get the emails. I did receive it sent on Friday afternoon. We did have host, however, a number of very successful events that I did share with all of SEAC for deaf, hard of hearing students, including the speech competition that deaf, hard of hearing students participated in, as well as the basketball tournament and other events. And that is very dependent on staff volunteering to do these pieces. So I will be responding to your email.
Thank you, Nancy. I just want to, I'm very connected with people who work in the deaf and hard of community is well connected. I'm out there, people who have volunteered their time for sure doing this. And I'm not going to, so I don't know if I really, I don't know the answer, but I know that we've lost sites where children used to go for the field trips possibly due to funding. If there was something with the TBSP location that was used to be accessible, that's an issue where we used to go before, we don't have that location and there's other sites, but I'm sure people would volunteer their heart and soul to
Let me make a suggestion, Robert.
I just don't think that's a staffing thing. I think people for sure.
Robert, Nanny, if you could take it back and maybe you could just see if you can broker, if they could take a fresh look at it. You've heard from Bronwyn, if the staff.
And Stephanie as well, please. The two of us would definitely.
So we've got people on SEAC that be happy to help out if they're open to do it sometime between now and the year, that would be great.
Thank you.
Danny, so it's not just doing it kind of what happened, but if there's some way we get it to happen, that would be great. Diane, can you do it in 90 seconds?
Do my best. So the meetings or the training for principals, I love that idea. Two things. I just wanted to find out, first of all, how the attendance has been. I think you said it's drop-in sessions to build capacity, so I'm assuming you're just trying to do it as an optional thing and whoever comes. So I want to find out how that's going. And if it is going well, just wondering if there's any thought that it could be done for regular mainstream teachers as well, because that type of education and training is really important for them. I know training is a big deal, and it's really hard to get down to that level, but it's so important at that level. So just wondering, yeah, we could think this would be a comment on that, that'd be great.
Thanks, Diane. So they have been very successful, as I mentioned, us in combination with formal sessions. So we do present to all principals and vice principals through family and school superintendent meetings. The superintendents give us time for monthly meetings. Our drop-in sessions are great. They can have anywhere between 40 to 60 administrators show up at any one time for them. We offer them at different times as well. So it's just one other piece to build capacity, a more informal way, but we do have monthly formal ways. Thanks.
All right, thank you. We've got 10 minutes left, and so what I'm proposing to do is to take part of what we're going to do tonight, the other part of building in June. In June, we are going to be talking about those letters of expectation. We'll be talking about the budget, and I'm going to defer to Lynn doing kind of an open discussion of people's take on feedback on next steps on the public forum we did last month. But I would like to do two things arising out of that now. First is we have a video and a couple of text delegations that I want to have us take. Leanne, just while I'm talking for a minute, can you cue up the video? And then after we'll have Nora and Jessica, I think we're going to read out the spoken word ones. And then I want to just get to the motion that I'll talk about. I just want to, one thing I didn't mention before, and I think it's something everybody's going to want to have in mind to. It's provincial, but it bears directly on us. I was at the standing committee back at the end of April. number of presenters, not just from the disability community, but school board organizations, trustee organizations, principals organizations, teachers unions, all said to the province, you gotta do something about special education. But not only that, the Minister of Education, Paul Calandra, said the same thing. They don't agree on what, but that's okay. But Mr. Calandra appeared before the committee, and he specifically, he didn't say he's got a bill coming, but reading between the lines, it's quite possible that could be coming. But in any event, he did talk about the fact that special education is inconsistently delivered around the province. And that the province needs to do something about it. That is heartening for us because we haven't had a Minister of Education speak in clear terms about the need to seriously look at reforming special education at that kind of broad level. I've said to the province, and I will be saying anytime I can, that they need to talk to SEACs, that getting our input, as well as to boards, and as well as to the hardworking staff that comes here at our meetings, find out what's happening in the front lines and what would be good to do. But I think it's good for us all to be thinking over the next days and weeks about what that could include. You know, I believe our public forum is a wonderful genesis of that discussion because it was an unedited, unfiltered, unregulated opportunity for whoever wanted to tell us what they had to say. Unfortunately, under tough time limits, but still. And it is significant. I've exchanged this in email with SEAC members. But the video that our friends of the Ontario Autism Coalition made of that meeting has been viewed over 1,000 times. And that does not happen even when our meetings are live streamed on board. It just doesn't happen. There's something there. Leanne, are you ready to play the video for us?
So, David, it's Louise. Sorry, I have one item just to quickly add to the leadership report. And I'd like to carry it over into June, and it really builds on your point of heartening news. On May the 6th, there was a meeting, a celebration led by the Toronto chapter of the Council for Exceptional Children. And Executive Superintendent Andy Palmer received the Educational Leader of the Year award. It was the last award presented as a fulfilling moment for all of the award winners. Andy was nominated by a number of TBSB principals whom she did not know. And what was described were the changes that she has brought and led for the Toronto District School Board, including two that they mentioned in the year on the video in June. But the requirement for all of our leaders who are aspiring to be administrators to take their qualifications in special education and to be monitoring monthly our students on monitoring days. So just a real celebration. She was joined by many of the leaders that she works alongside and cheer her on her incredible leadership, and I look forward to sharing the speech from the nominator with SEAC next month. So thank you, Andy, for all you do. You are an incredible leader. Congratulations.
Congratulations on behalf of all of us. Are you good to go? Do you want us to read the text delegations out while you're getting this sorted out?
So the parent for this
this is here, David, so
Oh,
it'd be great if you could do that.
okay, sure. You're welcome.
Miss, sorry, we couldn't hear from you. Can you please check share sound on them?
Now, when you do your share screen, there's a little box you check that says share sound.
And there's a green arrow at the bottom of the screen, that says share. When you click on that, a box will pop up that says share sound.
So you're going to do the keystroke, the alt S, and then you just go over to the share sound box. That's why I like to. We're going for a little bit of service.
I am trying, sorry.
Oh, yeah, what you know what you should do, Leanne, is stop the sharing. And then click share again, and then tick that box, and then you'll be able to, then you get the shares.
I don't think the sharing is on. I just tried doing what you said, David, the salt thing, it says sharing not on or something, so maybe she can't do it.
Forget it.
What's that?
Okay. Let's try.
There's audio is extremely quiet, you can't hear it.
Yeah. I did select the share sound.
It's possible someone in the meeting here could take the link, if there is one, and play it on your computer and just hold the microphone, with the meeting room microphone up to it.
We're working on it, David, with IT this.
While you're doing that, Maura, you want to just read out?
I'm helping with that.
Oh, sorry, Jessica. Okay. We've got a couple of others.
So we'll start with the submission from Shanali. Shanali writes, child and I face barriers to accessing accommodations in school because there seems to be financial burden behind who has access to supports. As those who get the means to fund these services are being neglected and forced to spend an excessive amount of time advocating for accommodations. It seems that instead of spending the GSB spending on helping students and parents, it's all about prioritizing pay increases and spending too much on administrative tasks that are not necessary. My recommendation to review and prevent these barriers include prioritizing equity in serving populations, such as BIPOC communities, low-income learners with disabilities, and enhancing the experiences at school for students with disabilities. By listening to requests made and implementing many changes to comments during a reasonable time frame. It should be easier to access online feedback, complaint forms, or email addresses to reach out to the superintendent or the student family support office. I should not have to keep asking for the same thing repeatedly just because administration is trying to create more work for themselves, so they can get paid for denying accommodations repeatedly. Such that there's no funding left to provide actual accommodations to children with disabilities. There is, the next submission is from Amanda, who has a son with autism, who When support is inconsistent, everything starts to break down for him. Not slowly, not harmfully, but completely. Larger schools are not neutral spaces for these students. They are overwhelming, under-supported, and in many cases, setting them up to fail. I understand the decisions are made based on long-term planning, enrollment, buildings, and budgets. But what I don't understand is why the children who are here right now are the ones absorbing the impact. Whether this school sees it or not, the students who currently at ACEA still deserve full support. They should not be facing reduced services, stretched staff, or instability with decisions being made in the future. These students are not placeholders. They are here now. ACEA is not a problem. Lack of support is. Please listen to the families who are living this every day. We are not speaking from theory. We are speaking from reality. The next submission is from Jennifer. Thank you to the TSECI for holding this important meeting. It is critical that these meetings continue, and I hope we get to the point where we are seeing progress rather than recommendations. As a parent of a special needs child in TSE, I not only see the barriers that my child experiences, but I see those of others. I want to highlight a critical piece of education in the school system that is missing for all children, but in particular those with special needs. The idea of belonging is important, fostering relationships, and being part of the community. These are not things that happen overnight. They require resources and guidance. We need to maintain the programs in schools that they already have. We need to keep admissions to these programs in schools open so they don't slowly disappear. The lack of understanding and lack of child-focused review means that children that already have troubles dealing with change remain unnecessarily disadvantaged. There are enough recommendations by professionals that highlight the strengths of school environments that I would hope that the TSE is concerned with strategy of works. Specifically, I'd like to put forward the following. Listen to families early and more frequently, especially before decisions are made. Protect programs that are working. Don't just assume you can do this somewhere else. Make it easier to find and access the right supports. Please also recognize that everything can be standardized to fit all situations. What needs to be shown to TSE by this province is that public education actually matters and that all children are investing in it. A commitment and roadmap to action is needed. Jessica, ready? Thank you.
While we're waiting to get this sorted out, the only thing I wanted to do was, if someone wants to move, I drafted a motion, and it was circulated for anybody who wanted to give feedback in the mail out. And I want to talk about what it is, why it is. If you're predisposed to approve it, we can. If you want to discuss it, we can. Amend it, we can. We can approach it how you wish.
Yeah, I think we just have the video, we just need to, yeah, thank you so much.
Right, you want to try again?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Go for it.
Okay, parents with super patient.
Your legs in and land.
Could we start again? That's better for volume.
Refusing to cooperate and not trying hard enough.
If we start from the beginning again.
How did that feel?
Could we start from the beginning, just so we can get the whole thing?
Are they actually? Before we begin, I'd like everyone here to do a back flip. If you don't know how, I'll teach you.
jump up, tuck your legs in, and land. If you don't do a backflip, I'm going to assume you're being defiant, refusing to cooperate, and not trying harder. How did that feel? Were you thinking, I know what a backflip is, but that doesn't mean I can do one? Maybe you could do one, but not here. Or maybe you don't have the energy to do it right now. A backflip is a skill set. Self-regulation is also a skill set. If we understand that performing a backflip depends on skills and capacity, why do we still treat self-regulation as though it's a matter of choice? One of the biggest barriers my child faces at school is not only their disability, but how disability-related behavior is interpreted by the adults around them. Behaviors like emotional outbursts, impulsivity, or difficulty regulating are often treated as intentional misbehavior when they are actually signs of dysregulation, overwhelm, or delayed self-regulation skills. A meltdown is not manipulation. Dysregulation is not defiance. Lacking self-regulation or impulse control does not make the child bad. When my child has an outburst, staff may remind them of rules like speak nicely or they may invoke privileges as punishment. Reminders and consequences do not build missing skills or increase capacity. My child does not deliberately break the rules. They simply did not have the skill or capacity in them. Many neurodivergent students are treated as though self-regulation challenges are a behavior problem rather than a disability when they didn't need it. When staff respond with punishment instead of understanding and support, it creates barriers to learning, belonging, and emotional safety. My recommendation is that the board invest in stronger neurodiversity-informed training for teachers, support staff, and administrators, so that disability-related behavior is recognized as an area of need, not a character flaw. And I want to emphasize that this cannot be generic training. It needs to be chosen intentionally, grounded in the current neurodiversity-informed research and practice, and shaped with meaningful input from people with lived experience. Outdated, ableist, and harmful thinking around disability and behavior cannot continue shaping how children are treated at school. If the board chooses to move this work forward, I would welcome the opportunity to contribute or to consult on the development of training content grounded in lived experience and neurodiversity improvement practice. Thank you.
We've heard a lot of presentations. They were all fabulous, but I can't think of a better and stronger one to be the final one we've heard. We didn't read those. I want to deal with this motion in the meeting if the committee is open to it. Let me tell you what it is and why. We don't have a record of what was said other than a video that's online and which 1,000 people have seen. And so what I sought to do, and Leo and Nora assisted with this, is to crystallize 4 messages received. They're not all of them, but 4 themes. And recite those in the training. And then make recommendations that essentially go out there and call it on the board and the supervisor to act on them. We will at our next meeting talk about what actions need to be. We would recommend them. This doesn't list what specific changes are needed or reforms, but it does say the message should be heard. So the advantage of this, given the school board taking its approach to minutes, such as we passed today, that before these things, that if we pass a motion, the motion becomes part of the minutes of this meeting. We solve the problem. So that's why I proposed it. Nobody said feedback suggesting any additions or changes, of course, with that. I'd like to know if somebody would be prepared to move the motion. Laura, would somebody be prepared to second it? Isabella? Does anybody want to make any comments on it before we proceed to not being told that they're already all in favor of the motion, please indicate.
Okay, I have 8 online, so that, and 3 in the row, so that makes 11, which is a pass.
All right, thank you very much. Let us, I violated my commitment to you, it's 10 after. Let's adjourn and we'll see you in June. Thank you, everybody. Congratulations on everybody's behalf to today.